The keep housed the Enclave's war room. Matters of high security were discussed inside. The officer's gate was guarded by arcs. Access through the loom gate was restricted. The cold sunk right into the stones here. This is why we use wattle and daub back home. Insulates properly. Loom gate near the spire. Probably for the Enclave's council members. Might not be one myself, but I'd better grab a key swatch. Wonder what's inside. I'd always heard the Enclave liked to keep extensive records. It's a lawkeeper's dream. Well, let's see if we can find a registry of Maker's sigils. This looks like some kind of evacuation plan. Doing their research before enacting asylum, I'd wager. Tables with assets listed. Looks like a tabulation of supply levels. Too new to be from before the surge. According to these dates, they stayed in Tenebron for years afterwards. Just some birth records. Surprisingly detailed.
Invaluable. We'll have to make sure Lane adds them to our archive later.
Here we go. Sigils. Ah, found it. Our creator is listed here as Lucia de Crassus. 2 registered workshops, both council approved for dangerous materials. She must have had some pull before the surge. One is here in the city. Wait, that's where I found on the workings of Archons.
By one L. de Crassus, in fact.
And I didn't see much else of note there. So I'd say we can tick that box. And the other, let's see. I've been there. That frozen town out in Dredger's Mire. Better wear something warm.
I think it's important we run this one down, Bryn. The water clock is dripping.
A lot of damage this high up. Not to complain, but there's actually too much magic out here.
Like a thick fog when it really settles in.
That error influences the weather. Almost certainly why things are frozen over.
Malfunctioning, then.
Indisputably. The ice buildup must be causing a cyclical localized reaction.
Sure. I'll take care of it.
Good idea. Swampy environs and intense cold is bad, even more enclave parchment. Best to lower the risk.
Already warming up. Hope I didn't damage the priceless artifact too much.
Can't make an omelette, as they say.
A lot of notes here. Water damage from the cold and melt, though. Let's see. Materials. Huh. That's how you visualize a pattern. Lots of marginal notes. These have to be from Lucia. Ah. She mentions a flood in the later passages.
Sev and I will look at these together with her book then. See what we can learn in context. As Aurea says, candle is burning on our flood problem.
Any luck with the materials we gathered from Lucia's workshops?
Yes. I'll let Sev fill you in.
We started with the book, which was painfully dry and highly theoretical.
Unsurprising. The Enclave was notoriously tight-lipped about the construction of the arcs.
The book was still useful, as it contained a number of craft-specific terms, shorthands and annotations, all critical. Referencing the book clarified the notes.
Without it, they bordered on deranged rant, especially at the end.
Sort of a window into her thinking.
We suspect Lucia spent a long time in isolation while working on these.
She covered many topics, but the most prominent was her work into the flood.
We know the Hearthsiders spent years working in Denevron after the Surge. Why do we think Lucia ended up so far from the capital?
It's evident she disagreed with the leaders of the Enclave and gathered others around her who agreed. There's talk of several meetings taking place in the Mire, most likely to be away from prying eyes.
Called her group the Verdant Minds. Very planty.
I like it. It's poetic.
Her workshop was a little brisk, even for my tastes. Any idea why?
She was fascinated with Enclave technology, specifically the dismantling, disruption, and repurposing of it.
Remember our talk about the aeroliths and how they could influence the weather? When the effect is accidentally concentrated, it can be quite intense. We suspect she was experimenting with the aerolith in relation to the floods. She predicted their start.
How do those devices I found with her mark on them tie into all of this?
In her final notes, her obsession shifted from the Enclave's leadership to the miasma flood. She was determined to find a way to stop it. On one hand, she looked to the aeroliths as a mitigation. Could they repel the miasma?
In the end, her answer was no. And so she turned to disruption. We think the arcs were tests. Could she shut them down?
And if so, could she shut down something larger?
She was clearly successful at least once. Maybe twice if we count the one outside the Veil.
Indeed, and when we're doing more general questions, that is what we must talk about.
Who exactly was Lucia? It seems like she had a lot going on.
Brilliant, but disturbed. She harbored a severe hatred of Enclave leadership, bordering on obsession.
Reams of fiercely colorful text, just to say some very rude things. Especially about the Eye, their leader.
She was also, at one point, one of the most respected enchanters in the Enclave. She worked on something she refused to name, but was clearly of deep significance to the Enclave itself. Called it the source of all our problems.
Sadly, she only danced around that subject, and never offered details.
All intriguing information. But we should focus on the Flood. Does she have an answer for us?
Partially. This is the design.
Her research led her to one conclusion. To stop the floods, she needed to disrupt a barrier of some sort.
This confirms our theory from earlier. She's talking about the barrier established by Asylum.
Her design is detailed and specific. The device it would create inverts the flow of magic and enchanted objects, disrupting them for a time.
We think the devices we found on the Arks were prototypes, small experiments to determine efficacy and duration.
So what's the catch? If the floods are still happening, clearly she didn't build one.
Lucia's thimble, as she calls it, requires some highly specialized components. It has to withstand considerable magical flow, far more than what's produced by an Ark.
It's like how mass scales exponentially. Just because you can build a scale model of an aqueduct doesn't mean the real thing can support its own weight.
If, and it is a very big if, we could find those components, we could construct Lucia's thimble. We have the expertise.
We'll find them. It's just a matter of time.
I only hope we have enough.
The other thing we'll need is a source of magical flame. Solar's mantle won't be enough by itself.
I can handle that part easily. Okay, so we have clear next steps. Just one more thing. What happened to Lucia?
The flood. Our best guess, at any rate. There's no sign of her. I am going to be poring through Lucia's notes for years.
Fascinating stuff.
Perhaps not to everyone, but she was a brilliant enchanter. It's not often I read a marginal comment accompanied with a lewd doodle and go, "Flames, that's brilliant."
I keep thinking about how angry those notes were.
Lucia's?
Yes. The tone was acidic, and she clearly felt she'd been betrayed. Not in the general sense. It was personal. I just wish she'd been more clear about by whom.
Solar.
The Hallowpire rise. Religious beliefs from across the Maiden are practiced in the Enclave. But the Church of the Hallowed Pyre values monuments, They regularly erect temples and shrines.
To better spread their influence.
Why else would a religion invest in property?
This temple has seen better days.
The high pyre remains intact, though. Built to last.
Should be a drop somewhere around here. Let's see. Supplies. That's good. More orders. Huh.
What's up?
Drops will be assigned to specific teams and tracked individually to deal with recent concerns.
That's boss talk for... We're watching you because someone had their hand in the cookie jar. That's all of them.
3 supply drops. Not a lot of answers.
I believe I can help with that.
Loom gate ahead. I'll collect its key swatch. Guild members must have made good use of this one.
Yes, and if the R is with the numbers of false increment that just indicates spaces. Ah!
Got it?
Yes. I'll translate all that we have and we can discuss it with Casmin.
Good stuff, Lane. We need all the information we can get.
And valuable insight into post-surge society that developed here.
Doing all right, Sev?
Apart from impending death, I'm peachy.
I know the news about the flood is nerve-wracking. It's going to be okay.
Why wouldn't it be? Your magic nearly burns through flesh.
Well, Codebreakers, how are we feeling?
Satisfied. We have enjoyed reasonable success.
That's Lane's way of saying they crushed it.
Notes being passed between a brother and sister, quite candid, and dissatisfied. In particular with their boss, who they refer to as the Grumple.
The Grumpole?
A Renlan myth, where ill-behaved children would be gathered up in a sack and tossed into the river to drown at the end of the year.
Bye.
The Grumple, yes. Renlan fables prominently feature drowning as a punishment for children. The myth has fallen out of favour in recent decades, though. Ren society is less forgiving of flights of fancy.
The Grumpole. Really?
Really.
Moving swiftly on. What else did the drop say?
Remember that ominous note about tracking individually in specific teams?
From the context provided by our hauler, we now know a significant number of Hearthsiders survived the surge.
But only just surviving. They relied on the runner-hauler teams. But supplies consistently went missing. There is also a sense that the Enclave was getting increasingly dangerous for the Scouts.
The floods, of course.
With supplies running thin, the supply teams were falling under suspicion of stealing.
This pair responded with the entirely reasonable, if exhausting, plan of overperforming.
I've done that job, Lane. Sometimes you just need to prove the ass in charge wrong.
Indeed. They collected a cache of rare items they were planning to turn in when they felt its size and value would erase any suspicion.
Do we know if they turned it in?
No, but we know what it was. Or is.
And that's where I come in.
Isn't that the most brilliant view you've ever seen?
I'm not in the frame of mind to enjoy sunrises right now.
Clearly.
Why aren't you freaking out? We're in unknown territory with no idea what's around the corner.
I have the best weavers in the Maida by my side. The first to enter the Enclave in half a century. And my quartermaster is devoting herself tirelessly to ensure that we're all safe. My wing's sore, but hey, nothing's perfect.
The view is stunning. Unimaginably beautiful.
You know, I'm a little surprised to see a Hallowpire temple take such pride of place in Dinevron.
What do you mean?
I'd always envisioned the Enclave to be a little more progressive. At least compared to Renland, where I'm from. The Church of the Hallowed Pyre has a tight grip on the populace there, to say the least. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with religion, of course. I'm not going to proclaim myself an authority. It's simply that my personal experiences with that religion were quite negative, as was their view on magic in general.
Oh, there's a flower that's all magical.